Cinema Worms.
Discussing everything from Grima Wormtongue to the Shy Halib.
I'm Sabib.
And I'm Linz.
And this is Cinema Worms Podcast.
Stephen King's work has been adapted into more than 100 movies, TV shows, and episodes.
So we'll be discussing Life of Chuck. This was directed by Mike Flanagan, based off a screenplay adapted by Mike Flanagan from the kind of novella, long short story by Stephen King called The Life of Chuck. So The Life of Chuck actually appeared in a collection called If It Bleeds that was published in 2020 with 4 other lengthy stories, which, by the way, when I found out that this story had come out actually just in 2020, it blew my mind, because Stephen King is producing remarkable work even now.
Even without the cocaine, he's still doing good work, you know. And also, I shout out to the books he wrote under the pseudonym of Richard Bachman, which were also published in like a quartet, and one of them, in fact 2 of them, are going to be coming out either later this year or kind of early next year: The Running Man and The Long Walk, which I'm very, very excited for. So he's actually got several films made from his stories coming out in a very short period of time.
Excellent. So Life of Chuck, it's kind of like nothing I've ever seen, and it was based very much off of the story. So it's a film told in 3 acts, with Act 3 first.
Which is a genius move.
Genius.
Oh, brilliant.
And by the way, you know, we'll be trying to describe a little bit of the premise, but we don't want to give too much away. So it's a film told in 3 acts, and each of those acts has a kind of a self-contained story, but ultimately it's all deeply connected to the character of Chuck, or Charles Krantz, whose name we see quite ubiquitously in the beginning of the film.
Thanks,
we don't know.
Chuck.
Thanks, Chuck. Who's Chuck? No one knows. That Tom Hiddleston plays the character of Chuck Krantz, an accountant, a family man, and a very sad orphan who was raised by his grandparents. However, the first third of the film doesn't even feature Chuck, other than, let's just say, many mysterious references to him, but people don't know who he is. We're dropped into a near-future America on the verge of apocalypse. And we're just kind of seeing how humanity deals with shock and grief facing the end of the world. And it feels very, very visceral, actually. And not just the end of the world. Soon we see the end of all existence, potentially. Yes. Then there's a shift into Act 2, where we see Chuck as an adult. And this is like basically one extended single scene, which is fascinating. It's this very charming, delightful, affirming, purposeful second movement with a lot of Tom Hiddleston dancing and buskers, and we'll leave it at that. And then the final movement's really seeing Chuck's life as a child and teenager as he faces the loss of his whole family, his parents and unborn sister, and he's raised by his grandparents. And his grandfather, in particular, is struck with grief and also strangely haunted in a way that is relevant to Chuck. So we have a lot of Mike Flanagan regulars in this film. So, and then also just a lot of other famous people. Chiwetel Ejiofor.
I like him a lot.
He's amazing. He actually is so good.
He's fantastic. He's actually, I haven't seen him in a single thing I didn't like him in. And it was really nice to see him in this, and he was really good.
I really liked his character.
Playing opposite Karen Gillan.
Who's also good.
Excuse me, of course Karen Gillan's good. She's Scottish.
I just think of her as like...
Don't you dare say Doctor Who.
Yeah,
she's done so much more. She was in Jumanji, for God's sake.
You don't go into Jumanji.
Well, actually,
the game comes out.
Actually, they did go into Jumanji. The new Jumanji where they go into Jumanji is not the kind of Jumanji where the Jumanji comes out. That was the old Jumanji where the Jumanji comes out of Jumanji. But this was the new one where they go. You know what? If you've seen SNL, I'm just doing a very
look it up. Do yourself a favor.
I am doing a bit from SNL, and it's called Just look up SNL Jumanji. You will thank us. It is one of the funniest things they've ever done. And by the way, I will never be Jumanji'd. I would never put myself in a position to be Jumanji'd. Moving on.
Oh my gosh. Okay, and then I will not read the whole cast list. Just I'll mention a few. Mark Hamill, yes. Luke Skywalker. Mia Sara, yes, from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And then a lot of veteran famous actors, Carl Lumbly. Then you have the Flanagan crew, Samantha Slavin, Rahul Kohli.
I think it was King, who had seen Tom Hiddleston dancing when he went on the Graham Norton show. There's another wonderful clip. If you're in the mood for looking up clips, this is going to be a good episode for you.
Yeah.
And Tom Hiddleston, he sort of starts dancing a little bit on the stage as he comes out, and the audience are kind of going for it, and all of a sudden he breaks out properly, and everybody goes crazy. And I believe it was Stephen King who saw that and said, "This is the guy that I want to play Chuck."
Wow.
And there's also a really wonderful quote that I found, apparently, and this is becoming a bit of a game of whispers, but the heart of this film is really summed up by this one thing. So apparently at a screening of The Life of Chuck, Mike Flanagan said that Stephen King told him that he had come up with the idea for the original story when he'd come across this really interesting quote, which was, "When an old man dies, a library burns down." Now,
I went like,
yeah,
when I heard that last night.
And we talked about that a little bit when we came out of the film. Like, what does that mean? What does it mean to be, like, to contain multitudes, to pull a Whitman, to become, like, something more than yourself? And for me, this quote, "When an old man dies, a library burns down," that is every book in that library, is not only just every memory that person has ever had, every experience that person has ever had, everything that person has ever been told by someone else and recalled, every person you know, every person you indirectly know, all of the things you know about the world. And it makes me picture all of our own libraries, and how sometimes I like to learn a lot, as you know. I'm always kind of curious. I'm always teaching myself something, because I don't like the idea that the books in my library, that any of them are left blank. So I always want to have something written in them, if that makes sense. But back to the film. Really beautiful film. Really affirming. I never thought I'd watch a Stephen King film and come out of it saying, "My God, I feel so good about life," in a weird way. But that's true of this one. Not to say there weren't a couple of like almost jump scares. There was definitely a lot of tension at certain points in it. It's obviously not the monkey, which we saw earlier this year. Well, Stephen King's really had a run recently.
I also loved that movie.
I know. I didn't love it quite as much, but I think it was cast really well. It was really interesting. I liked that we're kind of playing it backwards. There was something that I kind of thought we were kind of going to do a little bit more, and it didn't quite do so much. But in the end,
tell me after.
Yeah, I will. Or we can do your lovely little redacted.
Maybe,
but,
yeah.
But what I feel about this film is it embodies that quote fully. It is about a life lived well as you possibly can, and that doesn't mean kind of maybe being as productive as you can, or as capitalistic as you can, but just loving and being loved and being the most that you can.
Yes. Yeah, basically this movie is about sort of sucking the marrow out of life and also about death. So that's what it's about.
Oh, well, okay, that sounds like a really like sad, miserable version of what I just said.
Yeah,
sucking the marrow. I don't know if that sounds like a good thing. I mean,
that's a quote.
Marrow is tasty.
That is a quote from Thoreau, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Emerson, it's Thoreau. So I did not say that.
What does he know? He spent all his time in the woods, didn't he?
Yeah, and it's affirming, but I think initially I was really struck by its like terrible sadness, but it's also terribly beautiful and affirming.
I see why you would say that, but I don't know that I would ever have applied the word terrible. I think not as precise. Terrible, maybe, but I get the vibe behind what you're saying. There is something really, it feels very raw. It feels very, stark is the wrong word, but something very raw, like tenderly raw.
Oh my gosh, tender. I was trying to convey these ideas, actually, and I was dancing around those same words.
I mean, we talked about this as well today, how I like words, and I'm a word dork, and there's just something really interesting about getting to the heart of the idea. I always feel like when I'm talking, I'm continually shaving an apple, and I'm just peeling it until I get to eventually the very core of what I'm trying to say. And I think that's one of these films where you can kind of go around the bushes you can go around the houses, you can kind of say everything that it's about and how it made us feel, but at heart it is one of those films. I think it will be one of my top 3 of the year, which I've now seen 65 films this year, so that's saying quite a lot.
In theaters?
Yeah, in theaters. But there's something about this film that felt beautiful. It is not completely gentle. Like, I know I just said terrible, wasn't it? It is kind of terrible in a way. But it's not the word I would have used, but I totally understand what you're going for with that word.
Devastating.
It's devastatingly beautiful, maybe.
Yes.
Is that better?
Yes,
Yeah.
that is better.
It made us look at each other when it was done. When the credits started rolling and the lights came up, you and I kind of looked at each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I said I love that. I love that. I actually felt on the verge of tears without wanting to cry. There was something very like inside me that felt like it was expanding. I felt so happy and at the same time so profoundly touched by the meaning of it.
So I felt the same way. I felt like it's not that it's like it's a perfect film or that like you couldn't have your own critiques. It's that it's beyond that in a way. The experience we had with it, I was trying to write spiritual and existential exercise. It's kind of like staring at the eye of the universe, but also the very center of your heart or something.
Yeah, that's a really good way to describe it.
Yeah, and I mean there is like this very sincere directness, and maybe it has an allegorical quality that the cynics and the close-hearted people who are not open to this like very deep message could be just like, it's schmaltzy or whatever. But it's devastatingly sincere and vulnerable.
I do think it is.
That's what it is.
Putting two fingers in the air and tapping to the beat forever and ever.
Yeah. We can watch our episode on Materialists. This is something of a fairy tale, an apocalyptic drama, a surrealist story, also classic 50s film vibe.
I had a little bit of a Spielbergian vibe to it. Yes.
You know Spielberg's film about his life?
The Fabelmans.
Fabelmans. Yeah. I was like, what was the last name?
Yeah.
There's a bit of that. It's just this full-heartedness. It's like aiming for something bigger.
There's something innocent about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Very pure.
Yeah.
And this is eventually I'm going to have to get you to see the Before Sunrise Sunset series.
It is a crime that I have not.
Yeah. And then you'll see a couple connections. Yeah.
Okay. So if you've seen Life of Chuck, we would love to know what you think about it. Weapons is a mystery horror film written and directed by Zach Kreger, who wrote 2022's Barbarian, a film which had so much potential and annoyingly did not follow through on it, in my opinion. I clearly still have some feels about Barbarian. It was actually one of my most disappointing films of 2022, which is saying something because that year I also saw Watcher and the Persuasion redo with Dakota Johnson, who we all know how I feel about Dakota Johnson. That being said, great premise. Now, I was a little bit worried about Weapons, because again, it looked like a cool premise from the trailer, but turns out I felt quite differently about it. Now, Weapons stars quite a lot of people you will recognise from other projects. Julia Garner plays Justine Gandy, a primary school teacher, or in US terms, because this does take place in a US town, elementary school teacher, whose entire third grade class, bar one student, so that's 17 kids, suddenly leave their houses at 2:17 a.m. in the middle of the night and vanish into the darkness, never to be seen again. Obviously, the parents of these missing kids are terrified, furious, baffled, they want answers, but does Justine have any? Does the remaining student Alex know anything at all about where the kids went and why? Why are all of the kids in the trailer running with their arms out like airplanes, and why is it pretty creepy? All of these questions will be posed, though not all of them necessarily answered, during the course of the film. So this is really interesting for us because we just saw The Life of Chuck, which, as we talked about on this podcast, was structured into 3 acts, each which had like a little title card indicating the act. And Weapons, which I did not know it was going to do this, also does something similar, where we get to see different parts of the film, again, from a new character's perspective. I think there was 5 of them, and some of them were a little bit unexpected. How did you feel about the way the film was divided compared to Life of Chuck? Obviously very different films. One of them's a horror, one of them's like very kind of heartwarming.
We were just saying before we started recording that, you know, you maybe like were really interested in discussing the structure, and I'm like, oh my gosh, me too, because I thought it was really clever way to approach this story and also kind of surprise us in the way it unfolded. With Life of Chuck, it's almost like three... Oh, darn.
Scene break.
Yeah, I love the structure of both of these films because going in, I didn't know it was going to be structured like that. And you have this first part where you're introducing this mystery that's tense and engaging, and we really want to know what's happening. And it's introducing us to this whole world, so it just like ratchets up this tension, and then it unfolds in subsequent parts in different ways. So while Life of Chuck, it's much more like existential, and in Weapons, it's just sort of telling the story from a different angle. You're not repeating everything from the beginning necessarily in the same way, so it's almost like staggered, overlapping timelines that...
Like the Olympic circles.
Yeah.
Was how I thought about it. It's
That's a
picture
good
in my
one.
head. Yeah, they're overlapping a little bit, but they're all connecting.
Yeah, connecting, and just the way that everything, moments that you see two characters intersecting, and then you see that moment from another character's perspective.
I love that.
It's just, but it serves a purpose. It doesn't feel like we're just repeating the same ground.
Yeah.
And I loved that.
Do you remember we saw Monster? Was it maybe last year? And it did something...
I wrote a review of it, if you want to check it out.
And it did something very similar.
I was just thinking about that.
Again, that's a film which uses these kind of intersecting and overlapping perspectives really well to tell a story where you kind of feel like you've got parts of it and you know what happened, and you kind of feel like you know who to, quote unquote blame, and then the more you get little bits of story from other people, you realise your initial thought might have been wrong. So, obviously, before I've mentioned the pretty stacked cast here. So we've got Benedict Wong, who everyone will probably recognise from playing Wong in the Marvel Universe, particularly like the Spider-Mans. He's also in the Three Body Problem. I have a soft spot for him because he grew up in the north of England, and so what you've heard him do is not at all what he sounds like. It's very funny. And I think he's a great actor. This was a really nice performance from him. And there's also Josh Brolin playing Archer, who is the very, very angry and confused dad of one of the children that's gone missing, Matthew. And of course he is furious at Justine Gandy. He thinks she knows something. He is like, he doesn't say as much, but he basically wants the police to like imprison her and torture her and torture the truth out of her because he's so sure that she knows it. Now, I really like this kind of murder mystery element, as you said. Like, I love a character getting a map out and finding things and basically doing everything, like the red string on the corkboard kind of, like I'm losing my mind, but am I finding a solution? But what I also really like, and I've not seen done in a little bit, is, of course, this is a horror film. There's horror elements going on all the way through. There are comedic moments as well that I like. We haven't yet talked about something that I find one of the scariest things in any film, which is mob justice. So there's scenes quite early on at where Justine Gandy takes the stage at like basically this sort of assembly of angry parents to try and explain that she doesn't know anything, and they are out for blood. They are angry, terrified people. They do not know where their children are, and there was this kind of bloody hell. They're forming a mob. This is against her. I'm really concerned for this woman's safety, and also she's a little bit shifty. So we kind of don't know. When we're introduced to her, she's a little bit off kilter. We kind of don't know whether to trust her or not. But that was a horrible part of the creeping tension for me, knowing, hey, everyone in this town has kind of just turned against you. You really don't know if you can trust anybody. So that's pretty horrible, knowing that even if something happens, probably no one will help you or no one will believe you. For me, that's a massive, pervasive sense of dread that comes pretty quickly. I really like that. For me, that's much scarier than any jump scare.
Absolutely. So I think just the way the film is introduced with this child, not a spoiler, you see it in the trailer, child sort of narrating in almost like this like fairy tale way.
It is a little bit fairy tale, yeah.
Really haunting. What happened? These children got up in the middle of the night and walked out, and they've not been seen for a month. And then we're immediately in this meeting at the school that they're going to reopen, and the whole crowd is like tense and like many of them are so angry. So you're just like thrown into a powder keg, right? and then she walks, goes home, right, with this like fearful sort of like looking over her shoulder, and you keep that sense of tension of like walking around through dark rooms through much of the film. And a lot of the film is really quiet, and it's like I was saying to you, it was like my worst nightmare because I'm afraid of the dark, particularly like if you're in a house.
It was a terrible film to take you to see in that case.
Yeah, it kept me paying attention because I was like, why are you not turning on the lights?
Yeah, turn on the lights.
I hate it. Turn it on just for my benefit. No, I mean Jesus, it was like so quiet.
Do you know what I really liked? So, of course, we don't spoiler here at Cinema Worms, but there was something quite late on in the film concerning a pair of scissors, and it was done for nothing actually happened. It was slightly comedic effect. Something moves out of shot. It's very quiet, and then we hear another noise. And I don't remember the last time in a horror film I heard several people around us all at once, including myself, go and actually intake, and I'm getting goosebumps now thinking about it. And I thought, oh, Kreger, everything that I did not like about Barbarian, you have elevated, you have honed, you have worked on, and I see what you were trying to do now with it. I see why it doesn't work. So almost like David Mitchell doing a version of Cloud Atlas before he wrote Cloud Atlas, which is clearly the better version of it. And I thought, yeah, I get it now. I'm really, really hyped. I mean, it was a good film. It's already done $100 million at the box office. I'm really excited to see what he does next.
And yeah, going off of what you're saying about that moment with, let's just say, someone walking with scissors.
You should, I mean,
it's just like funny, running, and then becomes, they walk in a particularly funny way, and then it goes from absurd to terrifying. Yeah. And I think that's what runs through this whole film is this, it's really like fresh, I think. This combination of quiet dread and terror and like something uncanny combined with humor at times. It's like, it's quite funny actually.
Yeah.
A lot of the film is quite funny and then horrifying.
So Zach Kreger actually was one of the founders of The Whitest Kids You Know, and kind of cut his teeth doing kind of horror, like doing comedy. It's really interesting that he's moved into doing horror now, but you can absolutely see those comedy roots there. Unlike a lot of other horror films that I feel try to use comedy to alleviate tension or to kind of make you like the characters, I feel like Kreger actually instinctively understands when to use comedy and why things are actually funny. He's not just like, oh, let's jam a joke in here. And often it's something slightly physical as well. He's not afraid to kind of lean into the physicality of his characters and let that be the comedy. It doesn't always have to be like a joke, like a verbal joke. And I feel like a lot of other people could learn from that. I was so unexpectedly happy with this film. I was walking on air the whole time we walked home past the graveyard. It's totally creepy. And I was thinking, yeah, I've not seen a horror film in a bit that's made me so happy.
Absolutely. And the one, as a final point, I think the one we were really happy, we're really like, just thought it was so pitch perfect and engaging, but also not perfect in that, let's just say the ending felt abrupt in terms of there was a climax, but then there was no like runway after it that
it was literally,
I personally would have liked for the but I guess it's just a storytelling choice. The character's arc doesn't like complete itself, but they're very interesting characters, so you kind of want more conclusion.
I don't think it was a storytelling thing. I think it was a timing issue. For whatever reason, they decided not to have 10 to 30 seconds at the end of the film just to have the camera linger a little bit on certain things. They were just like, and it's done. Which, instant roll credits, which felt so abrupt and so strange. That, yeah, there was a ripple of discontent around us at that point. It's really interesting that the film ending was what annoyed people.
Yeah, that's we wanted
film.
More.
Yeah, just a teeny bit, just 10 seconds more, just to sit with everything that's happened before the credits have rolled.